On behalf of Case Western Reserve University Women in Tech, I'm your host, Michelle Burgess, and I am delighted that we have Aneeka Ayyar with us today. And she has a very unique perspective where she's worked in two totally unique industries. So we're going to hear about oil and gas and her experience working in engineering. And then we're also going to hear from her experience working in healthcare. Welcome, Aneeka. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So your first job right after graduating from Case was in oil and gas. Can you tell us what your role was and what that experience looked like for you?
Yeah, so after graduating, I moved to Houston, Texas, where I was an instrumentation engineer at Exxon. I started out for the first 2 years working on R&D initiatives and new projects for different manufacturing sites. And for the last year, I got to move to Corpus Christi, Texas, where I was working at a brand new chemical plant. I was in the field most of the days, very, very hands-on, but it was a very rewarding experience.
And with that particular company, what did you see as some of the unique challenges and opportunities of working in oil and gas and for Exxon?
Well, it was very different from what I was expecting. Right after graduating, I didn't know that oil and gas or even the chemicals industry was an option for me as an electrical engineering graduate. So I was super grateful for the opportunity. There was so much to learn, and they had a really great program for training new hires straight out of college. So after 2 or 3 years, I felt like I actually got the hang of it. One of the challenges was definitely finding other women in the workforce. For the first 2 years when I was on the corporate side, I felt like it was a reasonable amount of women there, but once I was out in the field, it really wasn't like that. I will say though that the managers and anyone who made it as a female, they were super supportive for anyone new and early career and finding any obstacles in your path to help solve them.
And before you transitioned to healthcare, when you think back on your experience with Exxon, was there a particular project or like a case study example of something that you worked on that was truly unique and made you proud?
Yeah, so during my time in ExxonMobil, I was an instrumentation engineer. Like I said, I worked a lot with sensors and control valves and anything automation related for process control. But in addition to that, one of the R&D initiatives I worked on was trying to get gasoline to customers in rural parts of Mexico. So they had an issue there where they were not able to bring in gasoline or diesel through pipelines. So ExxonMobil was super innovative, and we found a way to get it there via rail. But with that comes challenges of how do we make our fuel still meet our product quality specs to give it that branded ExxonMobil fuel. So I worked with a group of mechanical engineers and product quality experts to create a mini skid that would basically add our ExxonMobil branded additive to the fuel and still have it meet our product quality specs. Another one of the challenges with that is, we didn't know where these sites would be. They sometimes didn't really even have electricity. So we had to make a solution that was power free, that was totally a mechanical solution. It actually ended up using a physical crank that we had to turn in order to add that extra additive to the fuel. It took a few tries for us to get it right, but once we did, we were able to put it on a mini cart so they could actually wheel it from one site to the other if they needed to add it. And we were doing this at physical gas stations. So we would see customers coming up with their car, filling up their car with fuel, and that fuel that was going in was the product that we had added the additives to, and it was going into their cars. So very, very full circle, like seeing it from the beginning of us designing everything to actually seeing customers fill up their cars with that product. It was very, very rewarding.
So then from Texas, you went to California where you began working at Genentech, right?
Yeah.
And so tell me what that looked like going from oil and gas in Texas to headed out to California and working in healthcare.
Yeah, it was a really big change for me. I had spent 3 years straight out of college in oil and gas, and I thought it would be a good time for a change. My roots from Case were in biomedical engineering and electrical engineering, so I still wanted something technical, but I wanted the opportunity to work in the healthcare industry. And this opportunity was exactly what I was looking for. I'm currently an automation engineer at Genentech. I started in December of last year, and it still allows me to learn so much about programming and automation while still being on the pharmaceutical side and helping to save lives every day.
And with this current role, again, asking the same parallel questions, but from the prior industry, what are some of the cool opportunities that you've been involved with? Or, have there been any challenges where you're like, I didn't even think that would be a challenge within healthcare, something that you'd be up against? Tell me a little bit about opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, so after working 3 years in oil and gas, I thought I kind of understood that, any change you implement is going to take a lot of documentation and approvals. But healthcare is just a totally different animal because it's so heavily regulated. Any little change we make requires a lot of documentation and sign-offs and testing to make sure that, yes, we're making a change, but is it solving our problem? And if we are making the change to one specific system, why would we not make the change to a different system? So a lot of questions that come up like that. That was something I wasn't really anticipating in the industry.
And now, having had the opportunity to be in the workforce for a little while, looking at your time and experience as a Case Western Reserve University student, and now having graduated, if you had the opportunity to go back to Case and do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently now in the roles that you presently have? Anything that you would change or wish you would have adapted?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that my path in college was a little bit different. I did come in pre-med and biomedical engineering, and then I added on the electrical engineering pretty late, I would say junior year maybe. And so it took a lot to catch up and kind of finish that, but definitely worth it for me. Something that I would definitely recommend to everyone is to just try different courses that may not be on your path for graduation. That's kind of how I discovered that I would even like electrical engineering, even though it was kind of late for me. I ended up taking a lot of classes that, maybe it wasn't required for me. For example, I took a thermodynamics class, and that helped me so much with process control and understanding that, because it wasn't really covered in EE. And then I took an acting class, which was just for fun for college, and that's helped me a lot with public speaking and running a meeting and things like that. So definitely try to explore different career paths, different courses. And even if it's not something you end up liking, it's still great experience for you to say to an employer, like, yes, I have done this one course in college that helps you out with that.
Well, and in my mind, I would consider you a relocation expert, having gone from 2 different states right out of school. Like, that's unbelievable. Yeah. Any advice that you would have for students that need to relocate from going to Case and going far away from not a place that's home? Like, what advice would you have for them to get more acclimated within their new communities?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is to definitely be open to it. I know some people, they want to go back to their home state. They want to stay where they stayed in school, but I kept myself open to the whole United States when I was applying for jobs, and it was totally worth it. I've gotten to live and travel to so many different states. And one thing to lean on is kind of any support networks you can get at work. I know a lot of companies, when you just hire on to the company, they'll try to do some networking events or new hire lunches, happy hours. Definitely go to those, mingle, meet people, and find yourself a mentor as well at work. They might set one up for you, but it's up to you as a mentee to really foster that relationship. So just going into their office every few weeks, asking a lot of questions, following up. Those are relationships that you will carry forward even if you leave that job. Another support network I've leaned on is Society of Women Engineers. So when I was living in Houston, I was part of that local chapter. So I went to some of their events, met some girls there. And then now that I've moved out to California, I've joined the Sacramento chapter. So you get to meet a lot of different women in different industries. So that helps too.
Well, we thank you so very much, Aneeka, for sharing your experience in oil and gas and healthcare. And we wish you all the best with your continued success working at Genentech. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. This was so fun.